I think this is going to be the first of many. We make history on July 6th, and I think this is just going to be the real kickoff. This is not the first Access special that we've done. We had the events in Long Beach and San Francisco, and they've been great. But I think this is going to be the real kickoff to something special now on our own dedicated night of wrestling on Saturday nights on Access. So Saturday night is a great time for any fan to watch pro wrestling, and we're bringing the best to you each and every Saturday night.
We're going to wrap this up with Kevin Kelly, and thank you so much for spending the time and doing this. This is going to be just awesome. Fans are already checking out New Japan Pro Wrestling on AXS TV, and really just it's heating up even more in July with New Japan Pro Wrestling, the G1 Climax Tournament on AXS TV. It's just going to be a huge event. It's going to be in Dallas. That's also just incredible. And like you said, there's more and more with New Japan Pro Wrestling in America. I'm going to go back to the WWE days. We'll wrap it up with this. But, I mean, and looking back at the history and reading and just seeing, you mentioned Stone Cold Steve Austin before, and then you were actually at Pillman's house when they did the Pillman-Austin angle and Pillman had the gun and all that. And Kevin Kelly, you were right there for that. I was wondering just what was it like that day and being there and just how that all went down and just being a part of history in that scenario.
It was, when I look back on it now, I shake my head that we were able to do what we did that night. Live cut-in from Brian Pillman's house in suburban Cincinnati, Ohio. And when he produced a gun on live television, I had no idea that was happening. And everything else that happened around it was live and real as it gets. When we got in trouble the next day, when the folks at USA weren't too happy that the wrestler brandished a live weapon, and they tried to tell him, oh no, it was a starter pistol. I'm like, that is not any starter pistol I've ever seen. But I've been blessed to be there through so much history, through so many great events, and all of the greats that I've had the opportunity to work with, Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Undertaker, and just every great wrestler that has come along in the last 20 to 25 years. And now to be able to, over the last few years, to lend my voice and my expertise and my knowledge to New Japan Pro Wrestling, it's the greatest thrill in my life, in my career. This is the first line on my headstone, Here lies Kevin Kelly, New Japan Pro Wrestling announcer, and oh, by the way, he also worked for WWE and Ring of Honor too. Like where this is my career highlight. It can't get any better than this.
And that's awesome. And Kevin, there are just two more things I want to mention to you on that. You also played a role in the Stephanie McMahon Triple H marriage angle, and then real life. So I feel like you maybe had something to do with them really getting married.
Indirectly, yes.
That's right.
Or I can blame my wife, too. Because we're big soap opera fans. And we were working for a soap opera company in WWE. And one night we were just chatting and bantering around the idea. And basically we came up with this scenario to where Triple H was going to bamboozle Stephanie into marrying him and not Test. It's a classic soap opera trope. And, the scorned father-in-law, I'll get you, my new son-in-law. Oh, Dad, put her there, pal. And when, back then, there were no writers, and it was pretty much just an open submission. So I went into work the next day, and I was like, I got this crazy idea, and I just wrote it all out in an email, and I got the first response back 5 minutes later was from Vince, and it was, just all caps, one line, and you can bleep this. That's great shit. That's exactly what he said. And then a couple of minutes later, Shane McMahon came down, poked his head in my door, and he's like, dude, that idea, it's sick, it's crazy. And I was like, yeah, okay, cool. Little did I know they were going to do it. They did it a little bit differently than what I had proposed, And I had no way that these two crazy kids were going to wind up falling in love and becoming, married. But it all worked out. So, yeah, indirectly I did play a role. I didn't get invited to the wedding, Jim.
Oh, come on. Come on. All right, lastly, on WWE, and we're out of here, and Kevin Kelly doing great work with New Japan Pro Wrestling, calling the action. He's been doing this for, what now, Kevin, 30 years in the business?
Almost 30 years in this business.
And still going strong. Still going strong, brother. It's just amazing. All right, in WWE, you worked well with The Rock in funny backstage interviews. Do you know what he's doing these days?
He's kind of fallen off the radar. He's not really wrestling anymore, right?
No, all right.
Yeah, I think it all worked out okay for him. When he and I first met, this is a funny story. It was in Hudson, Florida, north of Tampa. And I was working for a small company there that ran every other Saturday night out of a flea market. Rocky Johnson was one of the guys that was booked to appear. And main event, it was the Cuban Assassin, Nasty Ned Brady. They were both beaten down. Rocky Johnson, and out sprinting to the ring, wearing his number 94 University of Miami Hurricane jersey, slides in, throws those punches just like we saw. And little did we know that, that was my son Dwayne, that, he and I would wind up working together. And I think everything worked out. We had a running joke that, he would just come off this big pay-per-view and the monumental segment, and we'd have just a moment together. And I'd say, hey, listen, man, I don't think it's really working out for you here. I could give old Wayne a call back at the Hudson Flea Market. I could see if we can get if I can get you booked over there. Oh, really? You do that for me? Of course. You're my boy. If it all falls apart, we always got Hudson, Florida we can fall back on.
And who wouldn't want to go to Hudson? Come on.
Come on. The beautiful city of Hudson, gorgeous.
I'm just curious, how did an FSU guy happen to get along with the University of Miami guy?
I was biting my tongue a lot of the time, Jim. It wasn't easy. And of course, so I did when he was first introduced to the WWF audience as Rocky Maivia, I did a series of interviews with him. And we got some sound on tape from Dennis Erickson talking about how great, teammate and a player Dwayne was on the Hurricanes. And we also got some footage, and of course, I handpicked. He got a sack on Charlie Ward in an FSU game, so I had to have that in there just so I could say I'm not biased. But each time that, Florida State would mop the floor with the Hurricanes, not when I was there, but then afterward, I would always, of course, have to mention it just casually. Hey, man, Hurricanes okay? I don't want to hear it, Kevin. I don't want to hear it. All right, just checking. So it was always it was good-natured ribbetry between us, and of course the rivalry between Florida State and Miami goes back to the mid '80s, and continues on to this day.
Yeah, and you see that also. First of all, you took one for the team. Thank you for adding the Charlie Ward sack in there, and also with Ron Simmons. I mean, being part of the Nation of Domination with The Rock. That had to be some nice banter there between those two FSU-UM guys, too.
Well, yeah, I think they, I think that was one of their bonding mechanisms that helped, was that they were both football guys, and they had, in-state rivals, and it was always a lot of fun. That was one of the best aspects of being in that company at that time, is that there were so many guys that had played college football or had been around college athletics that they all had schools and they all had alums, and they all, they were proud of their school. Like D'Lo Brown was a Maine Black Bear, you know what I mean? We didn't get a chance to, hash it out over the, Maine football program, but everybody came from somewhere, and whether it was John Layfield from Abilene Christian or Ron Simmons from FSU, The Rock from Miami, we always had some, fun and games when it came to our respective schools.
Oh, that's awesome. And everybody check out New Japan Pro Wrestling and AXS TV July 6th, and then kicking off July 13th. Awesome stuff. Thank you so much, Kevin Kelly.
Jim, it's been such a pleasure, and I can't thank you enough for what you have done over the years continuing to be the bullhorn of pro wrestling for decades, and you and Mike Mooneyham and Dave Meltzer, preeminent journalists in the industry, and have continued to just help it grow year after year, generation after generation. I can't thank you enough for what you've done. Those
are some nice words. Thank you so much, Kevin Kelly. And hey, I'm not an FSU grad, so wow. And I'm living in South Florida, Miami, so thank you.
I'm hanging up now. I got to go.